Oh, it's one of the most important images of
and
all
we're
time.
starting off this image
It's
of
along
the
with
section.
Dorothea Lange's Migrant
Yeah,
Mother.
exactly. That's what I was thinking
Again,
of too.
to capture a time.
We're thinking of Migrant Mother by Dorothea Lange. We're thinking of Frank's Trolley. And then
Action.
Are we good?
That's so beautiful, isn't it?
Elton, David, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. Over the last 30 years, you have amassed a photography collection of over 7,000 prints, and it has been a joy to work with you in the past 13 years. Starting with Nan Goldin's Thanksgiving series.
Wow. That's a big place to start.
It's a really big place to start. And believe it or not, we're coming up on almost 25 years ago is when you purchased this piece.
I think 1999 was the...
That's exactly right,
Yeah.
from White Cube.
And I remember that evening incredibly well.
Walk me through that moment.
Well, the White Cube Gallery at that point literally was a small white cube. It was a tiny space in St. James that Jay Joplin used to launch a whole generation of British artists. And Elton and I were regular clients of Jay's. And we walked into the tiny room and...
saw this four-wall installation, which took my breath away. I'd never seen anything quite like it. It really took me aback because having walked around and seen most of the photographs, which took me quite a long time, it brought me back to an era of my life. It was, the photographs about AIDS, photographs about addiction, photographs about abuse. And I said to Jay, this is just one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. It was certainly, up to that point, the most powerful thing I'd ever seen in a gallery.
Yeah.
And I said, how can you buy one photograph from this exhibition? How can you choose one image that will sum up the whole thing? It's impossible. He said, well, buy the whole lot. And I said, okay, I will. If you give me a great price, I'll buy it. Because this should be seen in its entirety. It's such a major piece. It's one of the biggest, most important pieces of photographic work ever. And it was just wonderful. It introduced me to Nan's work, although I'd heard of it, obviously, but what a way to be introduced to a photographer's work by seeing this on the wall.
Yeah.
And it spoke to us so personally because of the work that we do with the Elton John AIDS Foundation and how deeply touched we both are by the cause. Both Elton and I lived through the 80s, which was a very scary, very desperate time for anybody living with AIDS.
And Nan depicts this in all of her images of the Thanksgiving series, where her friend group was hit dramatically by the AIDS virus.
It wiped out an entire generation of artists. AIDS was so brutal within that and many other communities. And to see Nan as a survivor and documenting it so personally was incredibly powerful for us.
And also the pictures of addiction, which I'd been through myself. And I got sober in 1990, but I'd been there with my alcoholism and my cocaine addiction. That's so beautiful, isn't it? I remember these kind of times, going out in the bars and having the best time. The wistfulness in this is just so beautiful. And the sadness in this.
With your cookie at the bar.
Of being on her own.
That's right. Holding her drink, cigarette to the side.
Real loneliness there.
It is. And then you go to her time in Boston with her group of friends while she's in school, sitting there on the beach. The Mickey Mouse cover of the Times.
There's an element of these that are so carefree, and then you can feel the cloud of addiction and disease coming in.
You can feel
the longing. Look at her eyes.
The longing for the abusive boyfriend, Brian, and even the portrait of him up there on the top of the bed as well.
She took snapshots, really, and she took snapshots of her life. This is one of the great collections of photographs from a period of time, and it just sums up this time or her time so brilliantly. I just think it's one of the greatest ever photographic achievements.
I think it is too.
And that is one of the things we love so much. Of the many things we love about photography is the ability to chronicle a time, a moment in time, and capture it and preserve it so that it's around forever and we never forget it.
We're coming up now on two exciting pieces that are actually recent acquisitions within the collection. We've got Wardell Milan and Tyler Mitchell, both of which are actually southeastern United States African-American men. And
Wardell's from Tennessee.
That's exactly
and
right.
And Tyler's from Atlanta.
Tyler's from Atlanta. When we saw Wardell Milan's work, especially, the reason why I think all of us gravitated so much towards it was because of his cutouts of Mapplethorpe.
And Diane Arbus.
And Diane Arbus.
Two people that were passionate about collecting.
So passionate.
And I'm crazy about collage.
I know, and it's a wonderful use of the medium.
It's the most striking image. And it hangs in our house in London.
Yes.
And it just, everyone who sees it goes, oh, who's that guy?
It was my Christmas present.
Yeah.
That's
You gave it to me
exactly
for
right.
Christmas. With both these images, I just want to say how wonderful it is to see African-American artistic voices represented in the photographic world, because they have been underrepresented
You're exactly
in the
right.
past. So it's brilliant to see this talent.
They're really
coming
booming
forward.
now. African-American photographers are just really leading the way at the moment. And it's so wonderful to see it.
And wonderful to see the connection of inspiration.
Yes.
So Arbus and Mapplethorpe turning up on Wardell Milan's work. The fact that Tyler Mitchell was so strongly influenced by Ryan McGinley and Larry Clark.
Tyler Mitchell, since we bought that, I see his name everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Well, and a very important artist. He was the first African-American artist to have a cover on Vogue. Fashion photography has been one of the biggest sections of your collection.
Yeah.
You started.
I started with it.
You started
That's
with
what
fashion.
that's what
You
first
started-
spoke to you.
That's what started my collection. I was at my friend Alain Perrin's chateau in the south of France, and there was a photographic exhibition, and Alain was choosing some photographs. And as they were showing him these Horst Penns and Ritts, I just went, oh my God. Now, I've been around photographers all my life, but I'd never noticed photography up to that point. And they were so beautiful that I also bought about 9 or 10 images on the spot.
On the spot.
Penn, and Ritts. And that's what started me. I always say to David Fahey when I see him, it's your fault.
It's his fault.
It's your
I think
fault,
it's a
Dave.
fault that he's very proud to take. Correct me if I'm wrong, but am I right to think that one of your first earliest dates might have been over a Herb Ritts monograph book? Is that correct?
It was when I met the first night down here in Windsor. One of the things we immediately found we had in common was our love of photography. Now, I had the coffee table books of the photographs. Elton actually had some of the photographs. But we opened up some photographic books, and we just found we shared the same passion and couldn't stop talking. The Herb Ritts, for me, is personal on a whole bunch of levels. One is Herb was a dear friend and someone who supported the Elton John AIDS Foundation. Gianni Versace was Elton's best friend. And I remember Gianni talking about what makes a great fashion photograph. And he said, with a great fashion photograph, you don't remember the model, you remember the dress. And when you look at that photograph that Herb's captured in the desert of Christy Turlington with that beautiful gown, boy, do you remember the dress.
I remember the dress exactly.
And the pen.
Oh, of Lisa.
Well, that's his wife, Lisa.
That's
who's
his
his
wife.
That's
muse.
the great love of his life.
That's a
Great
great
love of
love.
his life.
And that
Like
was-
Norman Parkinson. They were both friends. Norman Parkinson and Penn were both friends. And the wives were both their muses.
Yes.
And Lisa is just one of the most beautiful, striking women of all time. And he photographed her so many times in so many wonderful outfits. This one is especially, it's quite extraordinary, this photograph.
For me, with Penn, it's always about the precision of the composition.
Yes.
It's the line and the way that everything is so symmetrical and lines up
The
so
graphic detail.
beautifully with the Harlequin dress
Yes.
itself, which is quite geometric.
Well, this is actually the first year of their marriage when they took this dress. It was wonderful. And one of his many, many Vogue covers that he shot, he was on staff at Vogue for over 60 years.
And I had the great honor of watching Penn photograph Elton. He shot some distortion portraits of Elton. And when that photographic session went into the diary, I said to Elton, there's no way in the world I'm going to miss this one, because having admired Penn both as a fashion photographer and a still life photographer, like the detail that he got into his still lives is exquisite. The way he can take an everyday object and imbue it with such detail and life is pretty incredible. So when he was working with Elton, it was the chance to observe a master at work. And that was very special.
I'm so lucky of having my picture taken by Penn, Ritts, and Avedon.
And David LaChapelle.
Now, you can't, these are the greats of all time. I mean, Penn and I just talked about photographs when he was taking my photograph, as when Lucas Samaras took my photograph, that's what we talked about. I just wanted to find out, and just listen to them because they're just the masters of what they did.
They really are. Robert Mapplethorpe is one of the most collected artists within your collection. You have over 100 prints of his, and you have around 6 self-portraits. What I've noticed is, regardless of the home, at one time or the other, you always have one of his self-portraits hanging in one of the residences. Yeah. Why is that? Why are the Mapplethorpe self-portraits so important to you?
Well, Robert was one of the greatest portrait artists of all time, and a great beauty himself.
He was.
I remember Ingrid Sishi telling us about her days of going around New York with Robert and saying he would walk into rooms and literally the conversation would stop. He was so strikingly beautiful. So the self-portraits of him capture that beauty and capture that spirit.
The one where he's holding the cane was taken very, very not long before he died. Yes. And that was what appealed to me. He looks like a ghost in that photograph. I was supposed to have my photograph taken. I had a date in the diary, but he died 2 weeks before it. And everyone knew he was really ill, but there's something about his self-portrait, the one with the devil horns and everything. I love self-portraits anyway by painters and stuff. I just love them. But for a photographer, Nan, we talked about Nan earlier on, now Robert, he was an incredibly wonderful self-portrait. He gets it.
And he's also a little tongue-in-cheek as well. He's kind of showing the camera, look at me, I'm a little
devil.
I'm a little devil.
He wasn't.
I heard he was a big devil.
Just a technical master, composition, just perfect.
Absolutely.
Everything about it, that is what he's known for. And when he does it for himself, he just knocks it out of the park.
All the great artists talked about the composition of the photo. They talked about the end product. What was it going to be like?
Yeah.
And having had my picture taken by Avedon, I was sitting at a piano and he would come over and just move a finger. And it would take 25 minutes before he would take the photograph. And everything had to be in the right place.
And work with a bellows camera. So it was literally a single plate.
Massive.
With one shot at a time. And he would only shoot 7 or 8 plates.
What is it about the Hustler series that you keep me hunting for more? And you keep me hunting for those vintage prints too, which I love.
For me, and the photographs capture this, is the vulnerability of the sex worker. Yeah. The position that those people put themselves in order to feed themselves, to survive.
Yeah. The drama.
What
is going on,
the
that
sexiness.
Red curtain,
and
what is happening?
What's going to happen next? And it's just, it's a bit like the Nan Goldin thing in a way. There's so much atmosphere in the photographs. And I love atmosphere in photographs, and Philip-Lorca diCorcia's Hustler series always had atmosphere.
They're very evocative.
They're very evocative. I find them very sexy, very sad.
Yes, it's that moment of sadness, and that's what it really
to have to do that to earn a living, and the degradation of it, and the shame of it, is captured in all those photographs.
And that parallels on a personal level with our philanthropic work. Because sex workers are disproportionately affected by HIV/AIDS. And again, it's that whole elements of society where there is shame and stigma.
Of course.
And those photographs, again, I feel they capture that powerful juxtaposition.
And it's actually, the series is done, I believe, between 1990 and 1992 in LA, which again...
No antiretrovirals then?
Nothing then. You're talking about a hotbed, not knowing how to deal with the virus, not knowing how to fight it or what's going on. And so it really does exemplify
to be a sex worker in Los Angeles at that time was a very, very dangerous.
You're dicing with death every
it's a
single
kiss of
moment.
death. It could be very dangerous.
Absolutely.
You're rolling the dice.
Again, the power of photography, just like Nan Goldin, to capture that time and that era. So when you
You'd never capture that with a painting in no way.
No, you really can't.
No.
There's so much subtext.
I love paintings and I love artwork. I collect paintings, but for me, nothing speaks the truth more like a photograph. And David Hockney would kill me for saying that, but I'm sorry, I'm right.
But he's
Well, but speaking about the truth of photography, I think this is actually a perfect time to get into one of the most iconic images of photography, which is the Robert Frank Trolley. Post-war America, and looking at through the eyes of our Swiss-born photographer, Robert Frank, who really shaped photography.
I love reportage photography for its ability to capture a moment in time and a moment in history. for me, the thing that immediately jumped out was the African Americans at the back of the trolley. That division in society, the way they were forced to sit at the back of the bus, and how wrong that was, but so reflective of that time.
Exactly. And then in the middle, you've got a woman and Judy Garland as if she's going to meet me in St. Louis.
With
It's like, yeah, hello.
Exactly.
You couldn't get a bigger contrast between the middle image and those two at the right. And the composition, again, of it's just a moment in time that he got. He got, and that is the difference between an average photographer and a master.
Which is what Frank was. But reportage is such an important thing to both of you, the photojournalism. On a personal note, you keep me very much on my toes with articles and photos that you see online or in daily papers or anything like that for me to go and find them. What is the drive for that?
But it's just really important to me to have very striking images from very important political things, human things, social things. These people risk their lives day after day to take photographs in dangerous situations so that we can see the truth.
So that we can really see what's out there. And there was a lot of backlash with Frank's The Americans. People did not like the way that he was portraying America. This is not how America wanted to be seen post-war.
It almost took, as a Swiss photographer, it almost took an outsider like Frank to be able to capture this with that level of objectivity. Because you're right, people get very emotional in the way that their country is portrayed.
Hello, Steve.
So
Steve.
what did you talk about? I love that. It's like live at 6. We have something very special.
I think you should deliver the baseball score. I'll do the weather.
And you can do the weather.
I'll do the weather.
We've got sports.
I'll do the sports.
I know. We've got sports.
Hey, big time news.